even though history teachers never trust a Cecil. Hi everyone, I sincerely hope you're doing well. Welcome back or welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name is Lamia, and in an effort to make equal access to education and opportunities everybody's business, I make videos about global scholarships and opportunities that, could potentially transform somebody's life. So if you saw my first video, you may recall that the Rhodes Scholarship is in fact the oldest international postgraduate scholarship in the world. So since 1902, the world as we know it has drastically changed, and the scholarship has obviously followed suit. There have been significant changes made to the scholarship. For example, in 1976, women were accepted as candidates for the Rhodes Scholarship for the first time ever. And then of course in 2003, the Mandela Rhodes Scholarship was established in Africa. The Rhodes Scholarship is constantly adding new constituencies, adding new scholarships, and I for one really appreciate how progressive this scholarship is. I actually think this is something I mentioned in my personal statement. However, there's always room for improvement. So evidently, I'm not a member of the Rhodes Committee, meaning that some of the changes that I'm about to propose may be practically impossible because of legal implications or something like that. However, I actually think that not being a member of the committee puts me in an ideal position to kind of give a fresh perspective. I do want to highlight that two things can be true. You can absolutely admire something and you can still see room for improvement. So I remember after In the Heights came out last year, I was obviously very excited because I'm a huge musical fan, and also I love Lin-Manuel Miranda. I remember he came under a lot of backlash on the basis that there was not enough Afro-Latino representation in the Heights. The sun has just gone behind the clouds. I hope the lighting hasn't changed too much. Filming, this is the realities of filming. Anyway, he came under a lot of backlash, and I remember being so touched. And I wasn't touched because, because people wanted to be represented. Not at all. I'm not even Latino. I don't think I get to have a say in that. But I just remember being guys, had we not unanimously agreed that Lin is off limits? This man gave us Hamilton. He's done his due diligence. A few weeks later, he was interviewed on The Daily Show, and Trevor said something so profound that lives in my head rent-free. So basically, one of Trevor's colleagues said, what's really interesting here, Trevor, is that I don't think anybody is angered at Lin because he did something. I think it's because they know he's the one person who will listen. And I would like to think that the Rhodes Trust is as open to receiving constructive criticism as Lin-Manuel Miranda. The following quote is taken directly from their website. Today, all of us around the world are called to join the struggle for equality and inclusion of all peoples of diverse backgrounds and identities, to eradicate systemic racism and to confront legacies of slavery, imperialism, and white supremacy. While I can't be sure that this video will actually result in some of my proposals being implemented, hell, I can't even be sure it'll reach the Rhodes sphere. I would call it a success if it's a conversation about what it means to actually be committed to creating equal opportunities. It's not enough just to be talking the talk, we actually need to be walking the walk. So without further ado, let's actually just hop into it. The constituency system gives me serious gerrymandering vibes, and I know I'm not the only one. So far there are 103 scholarships. In my previous video I said 102, but I believe they've just added another scholarship to, I want to say, the constituency of West Africa, because I've noticed there's more there now. I think the biggest mystery of the constituency system for me is the fact that the United States has 32 allocated scholarships every year. Let me pull up some stats. As of 2020, 19 scholarships are awarded annually to students from Africa through 6 constituencies: East Africa, Kenya, Southern Africa, West Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. They then go on to say, our goal is to expand the number of fully endowed scholarships across the African continent to 32. So in essence, even by the time that this goal has been obtained, a single country constituency, namely the United States of America, will have the same amount of scholarships as an entire continent, which is composed of 54 countries, which, might I also add, has the youngest population in the world, with over 70% of sub-Saharan Africa being under the age of 30. A lot of Americans are actually convinced that the Rhodes Scholarship is exclusively for Americans.
It is fair to say that Rhodes Scholars are some of the smartest, most successful people on the planet. Only 32 people are chosen to be one each year worldwide.
And I don't even think that I can blame this journalist or anybody else who holds this misconception, because these proportions, I I do have my hypothesis as to why the United States has so many allocated scholarships, and it's not proportional to population size because China has 4 scholarships every year and India has 5 scholarships every year. I actually think it has something to do with the nationality of these donors. I think most of the benefactors happen to be American. The United States ranked first in the list of countries with the most billionaires in 2021. I mean, I added that stat because in my head, like my logic is the more money you have, the more philanthropy you engage in. That might not be true, but I think it's only fair that as a donor you get to have a say in where your money goes. I'm not gonna rebuttal that, I've got nothing, frankly. However, I'm still gonna hypothetically serve justice. So yes, I'm going straight in for the jugular. I am going to reduce the United States allocated scholarships from 32 every year to 18. And I know that sounds brutal, but I promise you I'm actually still being very generous, which will leave me with 14 scholarships to play around with. This is the moment where I would love to channel my inner Oprah and you get a scholarship, you get a scholarship, you get a scholarship, but I'm actually gonna have some decorum and I have a method that I'm gonna follow. So the method has 2 rules to it. The first rule is this: every single country constituency, think Kenya, think India, gets a minimum of 2 scholarships. And every constituency of a group of countries, think East Africa, think Jamaica and the Commonwealth Caribbean, gets a minimum of 3 scholarships. I also feel obligated to bump up the number of scholarships allocated to the global scholarship, which I'll remind you is intended for nationals of unrepresented constituencies. There are about 60 unrepresented constituencies, and the prospect of nationals from over 60 countries vying for 2 spots gives me secondhand stress. So I'm definitely going to bump up the number of scholarships allocated to the global scholarship. Let's hop into it. Okay, so this is what we're working with. On the left-hand side, you'll see the original number of scholarships, and on the right-hand side, you'll see how I have redistributed the scholarships. So as we saw earlier, the Rhodes Scholarship prides itself on diversity and inclusion. So towards the end of every year, I used to get so excited because I used to like dash off to the website and I would like go and check, what we're working with, who we were working with, and read the bios of all of the selected candidates. Over the years, I've kind of like lost this sense of joy that I used to feel. And the reason for this is because while they have said that there is no archetypical Rhodes Scholar, there are certain constituencies, like for the sake of debate, let's say the constituency of Zimbabwe, where I'm noticing a pattern. So the profile looks something like this: definitely male, STEM-centered with engineering and medicine preferred, and usually athletic. Yeah, while being brilliant, these are people who have still managed to score 3-pointers, hat tricks, and tries. Please don't get me wrong, I'm not taking away from the accolades, accomplishments, and brilliance of these individuals. By all accounts, they're going to be successful. They are already remarkable. This is why they were chosen. I just think it is incredibly disheartening that in the past 9 years, there have been 4 female Rhodes Scholars from the constituency of Zimbabwe. And as much as I am always the first person to be like, don't self-disqualify, put your best foot forward, I can totally understand why this would, discourage Zimbabwean women from applying in the first place. So I remember after I was rejected and I was doing my rounds of letting all 6 of my references know that I bounced, one of my teachers said something that was just so... She basically said, they do tend to highly value people who are athletic. And so I wasn't gonna correct her, because at this time I was thinking, no, back in her day it may have been this way, but they've actually ruled that out. They don't really need you to be athletic anymore. It's kind of like a thing of the past. Long story short, the results came in and her words were not called. I actually think that it depends on which constituency you're applying from. If you're from Southern Africa, I think they kind of expect you to be a bit more athletic. At the high school I went to, it was mandatory to take 2 sports every term. One of my friends was actually asked in their interview if they play rugby, so it's definitely something on their radar. So yes, I'd put in some quotas just to make sure that there's somewhat of a balance In constituencies where there are an even number of scholarships every year, I would split it down the middle 50-50. In constituencies where there are an odd number of scholarships, I would alternate. So 1 year, 2 boys, 1 girl, and vice versa the next year. In the event that there's a non-binary candidate, the Rhodes Trust could rearrange the quota to be inclusive. I'd also like for there to be somewhat of a balance towards study fields so that there isn't like a STEM dominance. I mean, hashtag justice for the humanities. Disappointed though I am, I still have this glimmer of hope that one day I will be informed that the Rhodes Scholar from Zimbabwe is Vivian, who is going to study, get this, classics at Oxford, who couldn't tell a badminton racket from a tennis racket to save her life. That would honestly make my entire year. Nobody loves a soiree like me. So why am I being an enemy of enjoyment, you ask? Honestly, if the pandemic has shown the Rhodes Trust anything, it's that the social engagement can be ruled out and it won't be a train smash at all. Obviously, after I was rejected, I did wonder, if it had not been for the pandemic, would I at least have made it to the social engagement? Perhaps I could have had like a really cool evening at the Meekles, could have had a nice excuse to be at the Meekles, could have met really cool people. But then after a while, I thought, had I made it to the social engagement and then not been shortlisted after the social engagement, it would be the biggest mystery of my life. I would always be wondering what exactly it was. Was it my table manners? Was it the fact that I didn't speak enough? Was it the fact that being vegetarian made everybody else feel like I was judging them for their dietary choices? The possibilities are endless, too many variables. On top of this, I feel obligated to speak on behalf of introverts worldwide. Do you know how difficult it can be to get a word in when you are surrounded by extroverted people? Now imagine that scenario, but in a space where you already feel pressured to perform. Somebody could find themselves in a situation where the person sitting next to them, who happens to be somebody who will be on the interview panel, offers them a ramekin with parmesan inside. This person obviously says yes because who is saying no to Parmigiano? Anyway, this person says yes because also in their preparation, they read that it is impolite to decline Parmesan. But the gag is, this person is lactose intolerant. So for the rest of the evening, they sit there feeling very uncomfortable and frankly very unwell. A few days later, they receive an email, subject line, "We regret to inform you." So essentially this person would not have been shortlisted because nobody knows where they stand on the Israeli-Palestinian issue. So yeah, I just think there's too many variables. I also think that the social engagement can be a bit impractical. So for example, a lot of the people that apply under the constituency of Zimbabwe don't actually live in Zim. A lot of people are actually based in the States. A couple of people actually make the trip down specifically for this event. So yes, I would rule out the social engagement for good, and the budget that would have been put towards hosting, dinner parties all around the world could actually be put towards, you guessed it, another scholarship or two. I don't know what the budget is looking like. So one of my favorite things about the Rhodes Scholarship is that you can apply twice. You're given 2 lifelines. So essentially, if you lose your first lifeline, i.e. if you get rejected, you have another shot. At least you think you do. So you may recall from my first video that you need to be over 18 and under 24 to apply for the Rhodes Scholarship. Usually, after you get rejected, let's say you want to apply again, what do? You go back to the drawing board and you see like where you could have improved your application. So usually this is things like, I don't know, in my case, learning a new language, that would be very impressive, getting some more work experience. But in 2 years, that's almost impossible to do. So I'll be 24 in a few weeks, meaning that I'm already too old to apply for the Rhodes Scholarship again. For older candidates who graduated from their undergraduate a bit later than usual, the age cutoff is 27. I would actually change the age limit to 27 for all candidates. So my rules would be, in order to apply for the Rhodes Scholarship, you need to be over 18 and under 27. Last but not least, I thought we would end on a lighter note, and hopefully you saw this one coming if you saw my first video. I have to reduce the number of references. 6 is so excessive. So basically I would reduce the number of academic references from 4 to 3, because isn't it diminishing returns after that? Like, I just want to know what the 4th reference is saying that the previous 3 haven't already said about one's intellectual abilities. So yeah, henceforth only 5 references, 3 academic and 2 character. The Rhodes Trust has made it clear that they will not be changing the name of the scholarship anytime soon. But hypothetically, if they ever change their mind, I think the Independent Scholarship would make for a really good name change if ever they were considering one. And that concludes all the proposals I have for changes I would make to the Rhodes Scholarship. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you're familiar with the Rhodes Scholarship and you have changes of your own that you'd make, I would love to hear them. Please drop them in the comment section. And thank you all so much for watching. Take care.